Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Trollspeilet. We are going to continue our exploration of contact today. At the outset, our idea is to explore the connection with the tongue and some of that stuff, but we'll also have a look at the hindquarters of the horse and even the insides, I believe, today.
Yes.
To some extent.
Mm-hmm.
What we are building on is the classical foundations for riding. There's lots of different ideas about what's classical, and I suppose you can view it in many different ways. The way I view it, maybe even we haven't discussed this in any great depth as a topic, but what I'm looking at when I think about the classical way is a continuation in that gives more depth and understanding of how the horse moves within the same framework. Some that are considered to be classical are still kind of outside because they have been given a specific task to solve by the times and circumstances they live in. So they have specific ways of solving specific problems, for instance, which means that they are not necessarily within the same framework, same idea when it comes to the classical riding. So this is my idea is just that everything we are going to say will be possible to misunderstand or to take out of context. But it is in line with the classical tradition.
Mm-hmm. And we said the last time that we still then hadn't covered everything that we wanted to cover regarding the bit and bitless and all those questions.
Yeah.
And since we can define how long we want to talk about the same topic, we can choose to talk about it now as well. And then I have to say that we have got some great suggestions from you guys about topics that we can cover next time and further on.
Yeah.
So please keep on mentioning things that you want us to cover. So and we will listen. But this time, I felt last time that we didn't get to talk about enough about the tongue of the horse and why it's important to be able to communicate with the tongue.
Yeah.
And it's, as I said then, it's really difficult to find enough documentation and like people haven't studied that phenomenon enough, I think. Why is it that this connection between the tongue and the top line? Because many illustrations and studies say that either the tongue is connected to the underneck and to the bottom line, yep, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And this is something that we I can't show you any. We can show some illustrations. Shall we start with the illustrations about the tongue and the top line and the bottom line?
Let's.
Yeah. So that is like the 0636, for instance. Start with that one. And the yellow one is the top line. And you want to say something about the top line, like generic?
Yes. The most important, in my estimation, idea to understand is that the top line cannot work without it being an integrated muscle and ligament fascia structure.
Yeah.
So it's quite often we say that a horse needs to be able to stretch his nose all the way down to the ground in order to be able to properly carry across the top line. And the reason for that is that if that's not the case, some muscles will have too high contraction in them when the movement comes through the back to that muscle. And the tendency then will be that that muscle will contract even more. And then when it can't contract anymore, it can only be isometric.
That becomes, and that often becomes hard.
Yes. And it is typically kind of the weakest muscle that wants to do that. We already have a couple of questions in from out of town, from what I can understand. First question here is, can horses go on the bit without a bit? Which is a cool kind of question.
Question.
I enjoy that and like that. Simple answer, yes, they can. Difficult answer, not with the same precision. And
that is what we're gonna talk about now.
Yeah, it is a deep and long conversation that we need to have, and this is also the reason why I started ranting about the classical writing, because the classical texts that are been written, they are written by people who are excellent writers, who do not struggle with their balance anymore, and have easy access to being so soft in their hands that that it would be very nice to touch people that way. Well, only for instructional purposes, mind you. All right. So that's the first thing. Two things I'll say about that. Yes, the horse can go balanced to the contact even without a bit. That is possible. But the precision is lessened. There is also different things you can do with different bits that help out different ideas.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about that in one of the earlier, I think that was two streams ago. We were showing bitless bridles as well, and it's much easier to make the horse move over the back with a bit.
Yes.
But it's more, in many ways, more difficult with a curb bit, because the curb bit has a tendency to like curl the neck of the horse and pull the nose behind the vertical if you don't do it right. So, and to the other question there, how do you determine the best bit for a horse? That is also something that we talked about in that stream, and the very simple answer is ask the horse what the horse likes.
Yes.
So
also be very sensible. It is, in many ways, it isn't quite as difficult as many people make it out, in many ways. Meaning, if you do not have a rough hand, then most bits are fine. They are in use by different lines of how to ride a horse, but most of them can be used by a lot of riders.
Yeah. And then when it comes to the questions, should we take some of the questions afterwards, after we have talked about these things? Then it's easier to address them, because I see that there comes a lot of new questions all the time. So, and that is very good. We like that.
Personally, I have to just address the questions.
Okay.
Instantly, you know how my brain works.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But then it's difficult to get through the things that we want to say. But you want to answer that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. The French classical, working on the lips with an upward hand. Can you spend a few moments on that? Yes, I can actually. The principle behind that is that the horse will search into pressure. And if you put the pressure up, the horse will seek down. quite easy. And if put in a good context, you can use that with good results. Sometimes most riders, teachers will say, put your hand up a bit or put your hand down a bit, and that will most of the time that will be a deep understanding of what the horse needs in that moment. So it doesn't mean you should always have your hand up or always down, or because it means that the instructor probably knows what he's asking or she is asking for to a very deep degree. But up normally means the horse will try to search down. And if you do this in the right way, you can make the horse kind of lift its back at the same time. What we often think is that if you put the bit towards the horse, straight towards the mouth, then there will be a straightforward push, stretching the spine. So just two kind of different ideas, but within the same principles.
Yeah, there's a good thing that you say that the horse wants to, like, if you put pressure on the horse, the horse should push back.
It seeks into that pressure.
Yeah, so you shouldn't train the horse not to like, if you train the horse too much to yield to pressure, then you won't have that, then you won't get contact with the bit.
Yeah.
Then the horse will always be behind the contact.
Yeah.
So and if you, as you say, if you, for instance, if you use side reins that are low, so that when they are in line, like horizontally with the bit or the mouth, then it's difficult for the horse to come to the contact.
Yes.
Because if the rein is up there, it's easier for the horse to sort of relax down to the, and we're going to show that in some of the videos.
Yep. So all of these things, very good questions, and they touch on all the aspects of what we're trying to say. But just mind this: almost however you ride, there is a downward angle from your hand to the horse's mouth. So if you put your hands higher, it's just a steeper angle. It's you're not what can I say? You're not changing the game. You're just adjusting a little bit.
And it's also something we have to say, and say it again and again. It's no point in trying to pull the horse's head down. Or many people do that. Yeah, but many people think that, for instance, draw reins. They're using draw reins to pull the horse's head down. But that is you never want to pull the horse's head down. The horse, you want the horse to want to stretch, and then he stretches towards the bit.
Yes.
And that is the way to get contact. You never get contact by forcing the horse's head down.
No, we have to show this. Can you? So if I want to teach Hanne never to push against my hand, I will just keep slapping her away until she stays behind and away, right? What we want to do is this. If I apply a little bit of pressure, then it is likely that she will apply a little bit of pressure too, especially if I kind of push into her. So if you apply a little bit of pressure, so now if I give, she comes into my hand. And this can be refined. So if we play with that in a very, very careful manner, and we are balancing properly, then we can keep contact no matter where I want to move my hand. Even if you take your thumb off, it is still possible to move my and your hand together in all sorts of directions. And it's super soft contact. This is what we're searching for with the horses. Yeah.
Should we
move on a bit.
Yeah, we can't dive into the details. We can do that afterwards. So we're happy for the questions. Thank you very much, and please continue posting them. But we will address them when we're finished with this.
As we get on.
We have some videos, but we're not going to show all of them. We're going to talk a little about. We're trying to find out different ways to show you how the horse can balance in order to come to this contact.
Yep.
Let's take that other drawing that our daughter has made, the 0701.
Yep.
And we showed that the last time as well. And this is the horse is a little behind the vertical. That is because it's Dalton. That is my horse, and we've showed him many times because he has all kinds of troubles, and he's a little behind the vertical, and he usually has trouble with getting to the contact. That is why it's such a good example. Mm-hmm. But here you can see the tongue. It's you see the tongue. It's a white. It hasn't got any color marking, but there is.
There's a red line around it. The line around
it's
the
red.
tongue is
it's
red.
red. Yeah. So, but you can see where it is, and then you have the sort of the tongue. There is a bone structure. It's called a hyoid apparatus. Mm-hmm. It's a bone structure that is actually not connected to the skeleton with any joint, but with muscles. And that's the blue thing that is sort of behind the bridle there. Mm-hmm. It's inside the head. And it's very important for the functioning of the tongue and also the connection to the rest of the muscles in the body. We have the same, the humans, we have one that is a sort of a horseshoe thingy, a small bone that looks like a horseshoe that is around here. And the cool thing is that it's also floating in the middle of, not connected to anything, connected to muscles that go up here mm-hmm. to the tongue and down and all kinds of ways inside the throat and the skull.
Yep.
And this means that the tongue is connected to almost all of the rest of the body. So when we're talking with the tongue, we're talking to the whole horse. And if we ride without a bridle or without a bit, like a bitless bridle, we're talking to the nose, the hard nose of the horse. That is also very sensitive. Mm-hmm. It's so if you pull at the horse's nose, it can be as painful as the tongue. It's easy to think that the tongue is soft, so that therefore it's very sensitive, but it's also strong and soft, and also the skin and type of tissue that is inside the mouth is also very tough, and it grows back very fast. But the bone can also be hurt. You can get we have several horses at our place that have bony sort of lumps on their nose because of the nose bands have been too hard,
cranked up too hard.
Yes, and also with cavescents or other bitless bridles that have been too hard. When you yank too hard on the reins, it's bad. If you have a bit or if you have a bitless bridle. So, but what we're going to talk about here is the interesting thing is the horse is actually moving better if you ride with a bit.
So there's one of the reasons for this is, as you've said, when you ride with a nose band or whatever it is around the nose of the horse instead of inside the mouth, you can reach the top line only.
Yeah.
And that means that you must always have pressure against the reins because you only reach the top line.
That's
with
interesting.
The bit,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
You reach the underline as well.
Yes.
And if you can help the horse relax the underline by way of making the horse play with the tongue. This is described in a million ways by a million different classical masters. And the reason is it's really difficult to do and to understand. But the idea is that if you can help the horse relax the tongue, that will help the underline relax from the front backwards.
Yeah.
Some of the really good ones, like Boucher, was able to do that in hand. So he worked the horse in hand, standing still, until the horse was relaxed in the jaw and the tongue, as he called it, the relaxation of the jaw. This is extremely important, because if the underline is too tense, the top line can't relax. All right, but here's you flip that on its head. It's like this: if you hold the nose only, then the top line can never relax either, which means that the underline must always also be to some degree tense.
But as there was a question about if it's possible to ride the horse to the bit without the bit.
Yeah.
And we have had several videos showing that, for instance, the horse can foam in his mouth in a good way, the nice way, with just the lipstick.
Yeah.
When I lunge them in the cavesson, I often see that sometimes they get this good foam before they're able to do it with the bit. But I've also seen horses that have been ridden in a bitless bridle, and when they have changed it to the bit, the horse instantly moves better, moves better over the back. So the bit is stimulating the tongue and the action of the tongue, and as you say, the balance between the top line and the bottom line. Yeah,
so it is the balance point. About that, I can answer this question that's on the screen as well. Our screen, it's on the screen now. Is there a correct finger for carrying the Weymouth rein?
That's the curved bit and the combined dressage bit.
E.g. under the little finger or in place of the Bridoon rein in a double bridle. Right. It is the correct fingers would be to always use the little finger between those two reins. That's the correct way in the classical literature. If you get into the Boucher way, there are many different ways of carrying the rein, and also some of these have been adopted, for instance, in the Spanish riding school. Where you can separate out one of the Bridoon reins, so that you can get some play in both. But I'll push all that aside and just tell you this principle: the sharpest bit should be on the uppermost finger, because when you close your hand, there's more movement in the little finger than in the ring finger, and the littler movement should be with the sharper bit. That's the idea that drives all of this, and from that you can derive your own answer to that question. Right.
There are many different classical trainers and that have been advising different ways to do that, but I agree with that principle.
I have I think I have a way to move on. Can I?
Yep.
Am I allowed?
Yeah.
All right, cool. One of the questions we have got from our students is, and also we have seen a lot lately, at least in our, or at least in mine and several people around me, we've seen in the social media someone showing that how if you push on the tongue bone, that moves the hind leg in a dead horse. That if there is any pressure on the tongue bone, the horse cannot move his hind legs underneath. So, and I thought, okay, that's an interesting idea, but what we are going to look at now is a couple of illustrations that show what it's all about, this hind leg thing that everybody talks about. What do they need to come forward? What's the thing about the hind leg? So we are going to run, can we run 0001, please? All right, you see here a horse sitting down and lifting his front over and over and over and over. These hind legs do not step underneath, but they do carry the weight. However, perfect would be if it stepped forward into that. And this, in order to make this happen, you have to have a balance between the top line and the underline. So the horse needs to allow the hind leg underneath. So if he's standing still, as is the case here, is the horse is first standing absolutely still, and then he kind of moves back into his hind legs. So what he does is he raises up in front while he sits down a little bit with his hindquarters, right? And you can see the bones of the hind leg inside there, and how the different joints take up some of the flexion that this movement asks the horse for. Can we switch to the 0002? All right. The only difference is that if you look underneath the pelvic bone,
there's a muscle.
There's a muscle. It's the same color in this instance. This is the psoas muscle. And the psoas is kind of a weird stranger. He doesn't behave the way the other muscles behave. He wants to pull that thigh forward, and he wants to pull the back down, and
he wants to close the hip joint.
He wants to close the hip joint in all the angles. He wants to bring the knees to the belly and to the belly button. That's what he wants.
You have to tell people where the hip joint is.
Yeah, all right.
I should have had a pointer there, but yeah.
Yes, the hip joint is the uppermost joint between the.
You see this. You do this with your hands,
right,
so that you can see
the uppermost joint, that kind of the pelvis and the thigh bone, the femur. Those are
that's the hip joint. So let us see the animation again.
Yep. Just keep rolling.
There you can see that the flat on top, that is the pelvis.
Yeah.
And the big bone that goes from there down to the knee.
Yeah.
Is the femur, the thigh bone.
Yeah, and the funky thing about the psoas is that it kind of jumps past.
Yeah. The joint.
The pelvis.
Yeah.
It goes past the pelvis and
it's connected to the spine.
To the lumbar spine, yes. It also, so the psoas is a complex. There are two different parts of that muscle. One attaches on the inside of the pelvis, and one attaches on the spine. So that's the iliacus, one of them, and the other one is the psoas. So the iliopsoas complex.
But it's
very interesting. So, but the point here is that even if you were to pull your hand back, this could happen. See? I always tell my students that if your outside hand moves back, your horse should sit down as much as you move your hand back. There's probably a formula in there somewhere that some crazy people can try to do something about.
That is how the rein should work.
Yes.
You must not look at the questions. We can take those afterwards.
I will.
Yeah.
So, but the hand, if it moves back, like this horse, you move your hand back, horse sits back. Move your hand back, horse sits back.
Because then the horse is connected through the whole body.
Yes, through the whole body. The thing that most people never do, and we have little reason to understand without having ever done it, is that the horse doesn't flex into his hindquarters when you pull your rein back. And that means that if you move your hand towards your body, what's going to happen then is that the horse stiffens against your hand or collapses behind your hand. Which means that he's going to make his back into some weird, strange shape, and that doesn't allow for the right thing. But the problem is that most horses aren't trained for flexion. They're not that well trained that they can flex into their hindquarters.
And what we're going to look at in the videos today is also what the psoas does.
Yeah.
When it's too active in comparison with the other muscles around.
Yeah.
And that is we have been talking in several streams now earlier is about how to make the horse relax in its top line before you ask him to do anything actually.
Yeah.
And in the collection, like we saw here, the horse really needs to relax in his top line and relax in his psoas.
Yep. So I'm going to recap a little bit. We started with looking at the top line versus the bottom line. And then we looked at how the tongue is connected to the hyoid bone.
Yeah.
Whoa. That's a real tongue twister, that bone. That's funny. Sorry. And that the balance between the top line and the bottom line is to some degree managed by the bit on the horse's tongue. This is an important point. Okay. Then the next step is that if you do not have a bit but only use an on the nose thing, it is likely that you cannot address the underline to the same degree. But this is extremely difficult to measure, and we're not saying this with any kind of 2 lines under the answer or anything like that. But it is the best information we can find about it.
And it's also like if you can feel the contact to the bit.
Yep.
You can feel this, but it's difficult to explain.
To teach and explain. It's all of it is difficult. Yeah. All right. Then we saw how the horse needs to sit down if you put your hand backwards. And if it does that, you're never pulling on the rein.
No.
Because the horse does it's this again.
Yep.
I'm not pushing on you. You're going with me.
Following.
Yes, and if I take my hand the other way, that happens too. And
then I don't push.
No. But if you'd stumble or you lose your balance forward like that, what do I do? Can you do it again? I take my hand away. So I don't pull if the horse if the horse gets out of rhythm a little bit and then thus has to stretch his neck and pull, I yield and then I take my hands back as the horse regains his balance.
But we saw in the former stream, we saw me riding Dalton sitting down when he was tensing his psoas.
Absolutely.
We can have a look at that now. I'll just explain it first. Then it's really difficult to obtain contact.
Yes.
Because everything is rattling. Yes. Everything becomes tense. And then the horse doesn't dare to take contact. And it's impossible for the rider to sit still. So the hand becomes soft.
And this is also written. Yeah. It is written in the old texts.
Yeah.
And they say if the horse never kicks out, he is stiff or he will be stiff.
Yeah. So let's have a look at the psoas again.
Yeah.
The 0002.
All right. You see the psoas muscle again? Imagine that guy is really short and tight. He won't allow the knee to move backwards or the hip joint to open.
And it pulls the lumbar back down.
Yep.
So that the horse gets way back behind the saddle.
Yes.
And this is exactly the problem with Dalton. He does that.
Yeah.
And then he tenses up in the front. And then he's not able to take the contact.
So this is, in our opinion, a very important point when it comes to the contact. So we will show you now. The continuation is, we have seen the front, we have talked about the top and the bottom, we have seen how the hindquarters, we're seeing it right now, how the hindquarters can sit down and carry weight. And now we will see what happens when that psoas is too tight and what can you feel then? And then we will see if we can make that loose. And you'll show us, I hope, with your videos, how you can loosen that to some degree.
You know, it was this... This time the preparation for this stream was really difficult because we have had terrible riding weather for a long time now. It's been raining and with ice everywhere, and it's very slippery, so that it's been very difficult to take any kinds of video that is really good. But I managed to do a little yesterday, so and I think we can show a little of how you can work with a horse that that tends to tense up and has difficulty with actually coming to the contact. This contact that we were doing with the hands.
Yeah.
Because when you tense, you can't do that.
No.
Yeah. So
We will come back to answer the questions that have come in, the opinion on rubber bits, and also speak to the lower jaw release turning into more flexion. We will address those things in a few minutes.
yep. So let's just take the awful thing that I hate to see, because I was showing this in that video.
Yeah.
It's 6982. Me riding Dalton, and then you can see the problem.
Right. So here's a horse and a rider who both struggle with their psoas. This, you can see that the horse has dropped his back to quite a degree. He's still relaxed. There's no pulling at the rein. Sometimes it's just taut, and sometimes it is absolutely loose.
And when I give forwards, he doesn't come forwards.
It doesn't come forwards. You can also see that he kind of drops his head every other stride or something like that, which also means that there are not.
He's very stiff in one of his
unstraight things going on. All right. Yeah. So this is what happens when the psoas is really tight. You can see the hind legs won't travel behind the vertical. They don't want to, but they're not pushing off powerfully in front of the vertical either.
No,
because the psoas is way too tight,
and you can see that it's very choppy to sit on.
Yeah. So let's see how we improve that.
Yeah, this horse reacts very well to lunging.
Yeah.
So if we can see the 0733, this is the way this is the same horse, and he's like. Now he's just walking with only the side rein on the inside, and I'm using a kind of side rein that is really flexible, because he can raise his head very high up, and he can stretch a little down and still feel a type of contact. And the upper part of the side rein is resembling a rein. So it's possible for the horse to feel the same kind of contact as he does when
ridden. Yeah.
But you can see that he's really walking in an awkward way.
Yes.
This is because this is the warm up.
Yep.
And I wanted to show how he really wants to move. He's stiff, and he's got his head up, and because I'm only using the inside rein, because I want him to be able to stretch his outside shoulder a little more in the beginning. Then you can see how he is not able to lift his back.
Nope.
And when he lifts his back, he will straighten out more.
So let's see.
So let's see the next one.
Yes, please.
Yeah, 0735. And then now he's trotting in the same setup, and you can see that he's starting to foam a little in his mouth.
Yep.
And he's trying to find out in search for the contact. And you see he's trying, but he comes a little behind still. And he tries to lift his back, but the psoas is still too tight.
Yep.
Then it's but so he needs to be
he pushes off a little bit. He pushes off a little bit too much upwards.
Yeah, that is
but he's rounding up a bit. All right.
Yeah. So take the next. I got many of these because I took small snippets of the whole session.
Good.
0736. And now I think perhaps he's got two. No, it's still just the inside rein. And with horses that are really stiff in their top lines, it's good to start the warm up with just the inside rein. I asked him for a canter. You can see that this canter is really not good.
It's awkward.
He thinks it's very difficult to canter to the left.
Yeah. So you can see. Let's see how he straightens out that inside hind.
Yeah. And he tenses up his psoas.
Yep.
And then the back goes down.
Yep.
And then everything gets. And I can assure you, this canter is very difficult to sit to.
I agree. Next.
Yeah. Next one, 0737. And now he's got both side reins on.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that he's allowed to keep his head very high.
Yeah. So this rein is attached high and low on the girth, as you see, but it's gliding through the bit ring,
Yeah.
which means that the horse can adjust the height of his headset to quite a large degree, the way he needs to or likes to at the moment.
Yeah, but still search for the contact.
Yes. Because the length will not change to any great degree.
And then he ducks a little behind because the back is down.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, now you can see that problem with the back. But he's trying to stretch his head down, and then he's trying to lift his back, but
and sometimes managing, and then his back drops again. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see it if you let this run for a little bit. You can see that sometimes he stretches and lifts at the same time, and sometimes he just drops his back and goes behind.
Yep. And let's try the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've let him. It's important to let him try a little, and not be. You have to have be a little patient to let him find out. And the canter is very good for letting him stretch his back. Just let him go there, and then he needs to like get his hindquarters under and lift the lumbar back. So let's take the next one. Yeah. You can see that after the canter it's easier for him. Is this the next one, Ivan?
Yeah.
Yep. It's a little better now. He's a little more up.
Yes, and his neck looks like it's become longer, which is very strange because I'm sure the reins are the same length.
They're the same.
But he still looks longer. Mm-hmm. Because he's stretching his nose forward and his back up at the same time.
Yeah, because that is these side reins are not pulling his head down.
No, you can.
But if you fasten them, as many do with draw reins,
yeah,
they fasten them in the girth between the legs,
yeah,
the front legs. Then you're pulling the head down.
Yeah,
and you must not do that.
No. Right. So you can see now that he's both stretching his hind legs further forward and pushing them further out behind him.
Yeah.
Which means that he's quite likely activating through that psoas musculature, among all the other muscles, obviously. But that means that he will be softer and more moving in that area. And that is what allows the back to function. And when the back functions, then the bit can affect the hindquarters, which we will get back to.
And if you get a close like circuit,
yes,
between the top line, the tongue, and the bottom line.
Yeah.
And the psoas in the other end is sort of a connection between the two. And if the psoas is too tight, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So the psoas is important too. So you can't just take it away. It needs to cooperate with the rest of the body.
Yes.
In a flexible way. And the only way to do that is letting the horse find it out in between, in a sort of a box that is confining it. Yeah. So that he needs to find out how to balance within that box.
Yes, you need to give some rules, because absolute freedom doesn't give you the correct answers. This is an important thing. I heard this psychologist says that he does with his students sometimes. He does this test. He says to one guy, or he says to his class, who wants to play a game? And someone wants to play a game, and then he says, okay, I'll bet you $50. Doesn't matter really, it's just a joke, but this is an important point. And then the one student says, yeah, I'll take the bet. All right. Then the psychologist says, your move. But I have no information. I don't know what to do. Okay, you lost. And we can't do that to the horse. Absolute freedom doesn't give anything. What it gives is absolute responsibility, which is kind of hard to live with. So it's important that we allow the horse to have some freedom, but also to give some boundaries. So that's why Hanne starts with only the inside rein. Because it allows the horse to do all the faults to the outside if he wants to and needs to, or whatever.
Outside shoulder out
and too much bend and all that sort of stuff. But it also gives one thing that you can't do. Don't pull at this thing.
And don't position your head to the outside.
Yeah, and that starts bending the neck to
the horse can choose which gait it wants to move in.
Maxing out of this?
Yeah, we can see that. Let's because we don't have to go through all of them, but let's see the last one then. No, that now we get to the left side. That is the most difficult for him. It's like 0743. Now you can see that he's softer in the gait.
Absolutely, much better.
And
you can see all the joints in the hind legs are actually doing something. Still searching for that balance / contact, but he manages from time to time. And then it looks like he's kind of floating in the air. Yeah. But many of the times it looks chomp, 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 and then he goes woo, woo, woo.
But we can't expect him to manage to change just right away.
Of course not. But it's better. All right.
Now he's balancing better.
Yeah.
And you can see that I don't tell him what to do. He's very concentrated in trying to find out how to do this.
Yep.
And you can see he is able to lift his head up and get the nose in front of the vertical.
Yeah.
But he's not yet able to it because his back is not there yet.
The back isn't strong and flexible enough at the same time.
No. And then he must be allowed to struggle a little and just to find out how to do this, because if we let him move with his head completely free, he will just run because he loses his balance.
Yeah, there's a question we can answer instantly that speaks to this exact thing. Is it a conformational challenge for him? Yes, it is a conformational challenge. In the understanding that the conformation can to a very great degree be trained. Yeah. This is the same with people as well, right? So, I just have a naturally slouching head forward. Yeah, we all do. But it is possible to make better decisions and to become stronger and more flexible at the same time, but you have to do both. So you can see with this horse, when asked in a nice manner, and warmed up and trained, he moves better already.
Yeah, but
his conformation looks better.
The fault in his conformation is because that we know something of his past. I've talked to some of the former owners, and he's been a show jumper, and he performed very not badly, but erroneously. He had trouble, and he ended up with being lame in 3 legs, and perhaps it is because of an early injury, perhaps landing in a faulty way, and then getting some strain injuries in his front.
So it's also
we don't know.
It's quite simple. We can put it down to a very easy thing. If you jump repetitiously with a horse and jump fairly high, the landing on the front legs gives a high pressure on the musculature around the shoulders, and the shoulders then will gang up on the spine, and they will make it very difficult to get the spine into the right conformation. It's the same thing has happened with me with my bench press training, and also with the heavy squats that have affected my shoulders, so it's really difficult for me now to get into a good position with my shoulders. But it's it's fully possible, even at a past prime age, it's still possible to improve your conformation, as it were.
But it's also like, we don't say that it's wrong to do show jumping.
No.
Because if you do it right, and especially if you do the ordinary, like the groundwork, the dressage training, the horse will be restored in a good way.
Yeah.
And then he moves in the pasture and in the good way. So then the strain that comes from the landing will get restored, and that is no problem. But if they land incorrectly, especially when they're young, and if they land incorrectly or with a lot of strain, many times the strain will become difficult both in the shoulders and also in the back, because he has got a hunter's bump that is a sort of in the lumbar back. There is sort of this little bump.
A bump.
That comes from, we can discuss what it comes from. Tense ligaments, tense fascia, muscles that are too tense. That comes from landing incorrectly, especially in the young age. So this horse is becoming. He's not young any longer. But we still want to try to help him, and it is actually helping a lot. But it takes time. But this is we thought this is a good example on how to help a horse coming to the contact with the bit when the hindquarters is or the back is not working as it should. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just one way. There are many other ways, and that's why we're having all these streams and all these videos, because you can't explain how to ride in just one video. And I think we got like 7 minutes left, so shall we take the questions?
Let's. Mm-hmm. There's a question here that says, any opinions on rubber bits?
I'm like, if the horse likes it,
fine with me.
That's okay.
I don't mind much. I mostly use metal bits, but it's fine. I teach a lot of people who use different kinds of rubber bits. You know, the apple tasting ones and whatnot, and they're fine enough. Depends on the precision you and the horse can do, and all those sorts of things. If you think about it like this. The looser or softer the gear you use is, the less precise you can be with it, because it becomes more and more difficult to understand what is the feeling of the bit or the reins or the whatever it is, and what is the feeling of the horse's mouth or the nose or whatever that is. Okay? So you always exchange something away to gain something else. Mm-hmm. There aren't many free lunches. Mm-hmm. Right. How can the tongue affect the hindquarters? Well, like we showed in one of the first illustrations, can we show 0701 again, please? One of the first illustrations.
That one, yeah.
All right. So the tongue that you see in there, it's drawn in red inside the horse's head. Attaches to that hyoid bone. Oh, still can't say that word. It attaches to that bone, which again attaches to the lower neck, and it attaches also to the top line. Mm. So because of both of those connections, the tongue can sort of quote unquote speak to the hindquarters, depending on the balance between the top line and the bottom line. It's important to understand that this isn't only a mechanical connection, and there are many flexible parts in between. So you can adjust how that works with more or less tension in muscles that are involved in the movement. And that is the whole idea. It's like this hand trick that we do again. There is some communication going on. All of this isn't mechanics. You can probably describe it down to mechanics, and then if you want to, you can go into the brain and describe biologically everything that happens, but that's not our point.
But it's impossible to explain as well, because this is so complicated. We just, or the complex, we're just taking out some tiny pieces, bits and pieces of the complex anatomy of the horse.
Yeah.
But because there are so many parts of the anatomy or the physiology of the horse, and also of the human, the rider, that influences this this complex sort of cooperation.
Yep.
And we can't just we just give you an idea of how these structures work together.
Yep. So, but I do believe the next question will shed some more light on some of these ideas that rule what we just talked about. How do we influence the balance between the top line and the underline of the horse? Next question is, can you speak to the lower jaw release turning into more flexion? This is an extremely deep question, and we cannot hope to go all the way through it, but I'll definitely give it a good shot because I think it's interesting. Right. If we work on lower jaw release, say at a standstill, and this is important, it's different if you're moving, but if you say that you were working on that at a standstill, what we are doing is principally to work on flexibility without improving the knowledge of how to move with that flexibility. This is one of the fundamental truths about what we're actually doing. That does not mean it's wrong or right. It just means this is the fact about it. Just roll the tape back if you need to hear that several times. All right. Boucher, who is the most well-known about the flexion of the jaw and all that, suffered from not being understood clearly throughout his career. And he also changed how he worked with horses throughout his career. And this, what I'm going to say is, of course, not going to sort of empty the jar of Boucher all over the table so everybody can see what was going on, because I'm not that good. But here are some ideas that definitely are true because we know it from humans. So, if we start with flexions of the jaw, we can keep going to flexions of the poll, and we can keep going flexion in the neck. And if you just keep going with that, you can make the horse so soft in its movement that it can flex its neck to become really high. And also the back can come into that. And also the hindquarters can come into that. The difficult thing is that if you focus on making everything soft, it will keep yielding. So always remember that what you want to do is to make sure that it'll come into your hand again, forward into your hand again. And I believe, this is only my belief, but it might be well founded in how we train humans. This is how you make the horse too flexible, can make the horse too flexible, especially because it's such a potent way of working. The horse will become very relaxed and very flexible, and then you will be able to kind of pull him into a too high, and therefore he would be able to do both of those things at once. This is the most important takeaway from today's stream. The bit is about balancing the top line, the tension throughout the top line, with the tension throughout the underline. This balance is essential.
And the videos are just one example of what you can do with this exactly type of problem. And it's not, when we show an example like this, it's not like do this and then you will fix everything. You must train, and you must, because riding is, it's an art. It's a very difficult art, and
it sure is.
Yeah, and we cannot like, we have to express this every time, that this is a complex thing, and it's not. If you just watch one video and you think that this is how they do it all the time, no, it isn't. We have many different ways to try and solve a problem, and what we usually say is ask the horse, try things and see what's working with this specific horse. What does the horse like? This horse that I'm working with here in these videos, he really responds very well to this kind of training in the lunge, and he becomes more relaxed and he gets more contact with that kind of training. Other horses will hate it because they have other problems. So you must try things out and be sensitive to what the horse is telling you back.
Yeah. I got one last example. With regards to flexibility, for instance, you can probably feel that I kind of skewed it towards, it sounds like flexibility is all that good. That's not what I'm saying at all. This is what I'm saying. If you want to train strength to the absolute maximum, you should not train flexibility just in front of your maximum effort training in the strength. However, if you are not able to get into the right shapes for your maximal effort training, then you must train flexibility before. So the two principles rule each other out, or join to become more wholesome and more healthy. This is important for all sorts of sports. You have to balance these things out in comparison to each other. So the bit will definitely help you find the balance between the top line and the underline if you're not pulling at it, and if you're not just letting it completely go, not keeping any sort of contact. Find that softness and then find your own balance, and you shall be well on your way to becoming good at this stuff.
And what you said, when we've been talking a lot about giving with the reins, and that is a very important principle that we need to emphasize now, because we have shown this lunging thing when this side reins are not giving forwards, it's giving up and down, and that's a different thing than giving forwards that you can do with the rein, or with your if you're long reining, for instance, in the lunge, or if you're riding, you're able to give forwards so the horse will stretch in this direction. So there are many different ways to help the horse, and you must vary. Never do just the same thing all the time, and see and observe what is happening, what is giving results.
Observe what's happening. That's an extremely good point. All right, this is what we had time for in today's stream. This was an interesting discussion on balance, I believe. And also on contact. The
fun thing is that we never know. We have never planned these things before we start. So it's interesting for us as well. And when we never know the result. So
we're also balancing our input, and we're trying to balance it with your inputs as well.
And then the next time we haven't got a theme. We have some ideas that we got from you guys. But please continue asking us stuff, and we will
send us more questions, and we will try and answer to the best of our abilities. This has been a great evening. Thank you very much for following us on the stream. It's been really great having you. We hope to be back in a couple